We've talked about characterization a lot, and we know that characters have an inner and an outer journey, right? So the outer journey typically tends to be the plot, what's happening in the story. The inner journey is something that the character is something that's causing him to transform, right? So either an internal hurt that he's got or something that he needs to overcome in order to change and become a better person. So today we're going to talk about both those journeys, right? The inner and the outer journey, and why it's important for you to have both.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante and I'm a women's fiction author, and I'm really excited to be here today. Okay, talking about characters and inner and outer journey, which is really one of my favorite topics. I really like that because I think that really understanding the inner journey of a character is really what transformed my writing from just a story, right, where I'm just going through the motions of like, this is happening, then this is happening, and then here's the crisis, and here's, right, just that outer journey into really going deeper into my characters and understanding what makes them tick, why they're even going through the outer journey. So I want to talk about both of those things today. And the first thing really I want to say is that I think we are all familiar with the character arc, even if you're not a writer, just because we're, we're a culture where we watch so much TV and we've watched so many movies where, maybe in the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, people did watch, spend hours and hours and hours watching movies, and they probably weren't so familiar. They read every once in a while, they watched a movie every once in a while, but it wasn't so familiar like now, like it is today, right? Where we go to the movies, we watch TV, we have so much media that we're exposed to, that I think most people really are familiar with the character arc. They understand that a character is beginning a story, how they're beginning usually in their ordinary world with something that's happening, that something's going to happen. It's going to launch them onto this new adventure. They're going to reach a crisis point at some point where they're, it looks like maybe they're not going to achieve their goal. And then eventually, at least in America, it seems that we tend to have a happily ever after. I know some foreign movies, things are different, right? Things don't always end in a positive. Maybe they're more realistic. They don't always end in a positive way. But we're all familiar with that. And I think we're less familiar we can feel it, but we're less familiar with that inner journey. And that is where the real story is. So let's talk about that inner journey. Okay, so the first reason that the inner journey is so important and that we should really, really consider it when we're plotting, or even if we're not plotting, right? If we know just what's going to happen in that outer plot, we want to consider these things about the inner journey. First is that the inner journey is a journey of self-discovery. The reason that that this character is even going on the outer journey, the reason that they're experiencing the plot or the story, is because they need to discover something about themselves. And that is super helpful for you as the writer when you're thinking of your plot, because you need to give this character opportunities to learn about himself. So the plot points that you add to your book, or the scenes that you create in your book, some of them should allow this character to discover something about himself that he didn't know, or that he forgot that he used to know about himself, or that he needs to learn, right? That maybe he didn't know about himself, like he didn't really know that he could be a good father, but all of a sudden he has that opportunity and he realizes that he can be and that he is. So let's say we have a story about a race car driver who maybe has a wealthy, comes from a wealthy family, very domineering family. They want him to take over the family business. He really wants to be a race car driver. We kind of know like the outer story just from that, okay, so he's going to have to leave this domineering family. He's going to have to try to become a race car driver. And he's going to have some kind of crisis in the middle. And we know that at the end, he's going to be maybe, the final scene is he's successfully winning a race as a race car driver. So he achieves his goal. So that is our outer story. But if it's a story of self-discovery, what is it that this character is discovering about himself, maybe about his family? So what kind of things could he discover about himself? Well, maybe he discovers that how to take risks, right? So maybe he learns that that's part of who he needs to be, is a risk taker. Maybe he learns that he can make it without the influence of his parents and his family and the money and the power. Maybe he learns how to actually work with a family. Maybe he realizes that, winning races is not a solo thing, that you need everybody else that's around you. You need your crew. You need your manager, whatever, right, to help you to become a success in your dream. So he learns that maybe this is a family unit as well, and that you need a family, right? So he learns how to become a part of a family when he wasn't before. So we can like write it all down, right? What are some of the things, some self-discovery things that he could learn about himself in this plot? And that will help us to write the scenes that we need. Also keep in mind that this journey of self-discovery doesn't have to be an alone thing either. So he's not just learning about himself by just the things that he does. Maybe he learns more about himself through his coach, maybe through his friends, maybe through a love interest. So how is it that he is discovering these things about himself? It can be a joint thing. So there's different characters that can help him to learn more about himself. Okay, the second purpose of the inner journey is for the character to learn more about other people. So not only is he discovering things about himself, but he's discovering things about other people in his life as well. We think we know other people. Social media is a really good example of how we really don't know people as well as we think, right? So they might say things that we thought, wow, I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't know you had these interests. I didn't know these things about you, but now I do, right? So you sometimes think you know someone, but you don't, either until they say something that opens up who they are, or you go through an experience with them and you learn a little bit more about who they are. So your character through the story is going to learn more about other people. So if we take, for example, our race car driver, he could learn more about maybe his parents. Maybe he doesn't really know how controlling they are. Maybe he just thinks they are, but he realizes to the what extent they would go to control him and his choices in life. And the more interesting scenes you have with other people, the more the reader is going to learn also about your character, but the more they're going to enjoy it, right? So if the character finds, for example, that characters he thought he knew, he didn't know as well. Maybe he has friends that betray him. Maybe he has loved ones that he thought he knew and he really didn't. So again, that creates tension, it creates interest, and it allows the character to learn more about the people around him, which also helps to define who he is and what he will accept and not accept in his life. And one of the things we should ask ourselves is, why is it that we are really so bad at understanding other people? One of the reasons is that we really don't listen, right? We really don't listen to what people say. And so then we're surprised. We also don't pay attention. We don't pay attention to things that they do that are clues to either how they really feel or what they really think. And that creates really, again, great story tension, because we can use that. We can use that the character really hasn't listened or hasn't really realized that this, best friend who thought was just a friend really was in love with him the whole time and follows him on this journey to be a race car driver, right? So maybe because he didn't, this creates that tension. Maybe if he had paid attention to the clues, if he had listened to the things that she said, he would have realized that. Comes to realize that through the course of the story and the things that she does. So that you can use that. So self-discovery and discovery of other people and who they really are and how they connect to that character. It's another reason that we want to have that inner journey. Okay, so now let's jump to the outer journey. If we really understand that inner journey and, what this character is going to discover about himself, what he's going to discover about the secondary characters and the people in his life, it makes it both easier and more complex to write that outer journey. So where we thought the character is just going to be a race car driver who wants to win races, and that's what our story is about. And it's going to be a challenge because it's hard to, buy your car and to get donors or whatever race car drivers get, right? Investors. uh, we thought that was the story, but really it's more complex, right? Because now we have to think about, okay, well, if he needs to discover things about himself and discover things about his family and his friends and all of this, then we need to make sure that we're putting the right people into that story, into those scenes. We need to really think about those secondary characters and their purpose in the story. So who's going to test him? Who's going to help make him the star? Who's going to betray him? Who's going to do certain things to make the story interesting, and to help him, again, discover more about himself and what he really wants and what he really needs in his life. So those secondary characters are going to force your primary character to take a really good, deep look at himself. What are his strengths and what are his weaknesses, and what is it that he needs in his life in order to achieve his goals? Why isn't he achieving his goals? Maybe because he's lacking certain things that these secondary characters can help him to embrace or to acquire, right? So you want to make sure that you're including certain scenes that helps all of this happen. So it's not just, how do I find a donor for my car, but, what other purpose can that character serve in the story to help that character grow and learn about himself and others. And the important thing to remember here is that your character has to drive, though, both the inner and the outer journey. So the secondary characters are important. They're there to test, they're there to question, to do the things that secondary characters do. But it is the primary character's job to change and transform, right, and earn his happily ever after. It's not the secondary character's job to do that, to push him into what he needs to do. It's a decision that the primary character has to make, and to drive that journey into that final scene of where he is going to become a self-actualized and successful character at the end. So what does that take then from the character? It takes action, right? So if the character finds out that there has been a betrayal, that there has been something that has happened, maybe somebody from his family helped to pay off to find the right person to get him the car, to get him that first contract to drive, whatever, right? Then he has to take some action there. What is he going to do? Because now what he thought he had accomplished all on his own, he actually had help, right? From the controlling, manipulative family. So he needs to take some action in order to control where his life is going next. Right, so what kind of action could he take? Well, there could be a variety of things, right? He could completely disown his family. Maybe he's already done that. Maybe he could choose to forgive, or maybe he could, quit, right? And say, I didn't earn all this on my own. I'm going to start again, and I'm going to do it all by myself. There's, if you've watched the Rocky movies, there's a really great scene where the manager is feeding him, I think it was in Rocky 3, right, where he's feeding him like super easy fights so that he doesn't get hurt. And when he finds out, he's upset because he feels like, well, I haven't really been tested. I've really been, fed these easy fights. I thought it was really great, and I'm really not. And so he feels betrayed there, right? And he confronts the manager, and he does all that. So the character could do something like that. He has to take some action. And I believe, if I remember this correctly, is in order to feel like the fighter that he is, he actually takes a huge challenge, right? He takes a big challenge. I think I'm confused about all the Rockies, but I think that might have been the Rockies, Mr. T, where he takes on the big fight in order to prove to himself that he really did deserve the title that he has. So, but what happens right there, right? The character is taking action. The character is moving in a different direction, even though he felt betrayed, but he forgives, right? He forgives because he knows the manager was doing this for his own good. He was trying to protect him, but in protecting him, he was really not protecting him. He was really hurting him. So that's where your character needs to be, though. Your character needs to take control of the inner and the outer journey so that he is leading he is actually earning his goal at the end of the story. So hopefully you can see the power of having both journeys, the inner and the outer journey, because what you're trying to do, what you want to do to create the best and the most effective story is to interlace these two, right? So we're looking at the things that the inner journey, we're looking at what the character needs in order to grow, in order to become self-actualized, in order to reach the outer goal. And we want to weave those two things together to create the strongest and best stories. So as the reader is reading about the outer journey and what the character is doing to get through that plot, right, to get to the end of the story, we're also learning about what's going on inside, what changes are going on within the character, and how the character is growing and becoming, the person really that you want them to be by the end of the story. So hopefully you see that it's important to have both the inner and the outer journey, and that the better you are at creating scenes really for that inner journey and tying it into the outer journey, the stronger your story is going to be. So I hope that this has helped. If it has, then again, hit the like, hit the share button, tell your writing friends about the video, and I will see you again next week.